this time around.
Rio 2016. The Olympic Games starts 5th of August across the BBC.
Hello, you're watching BBC World News. I'm Adnan Nawaz. Our top story this hour: there's been another deadly shooting of police officers in the United States. 3 have been killed in the city of Baton Rouge, 3 others wounded. President Obama calls for restraint.
We as a nation have to be loud and clear that nothing justifies violence against law enforcement. Attacks on police are an attack on all of us.
The programme. Our other main stories this hour. Cleveland is bracing itself for the arrival of Donald Trump. The Republican National Convention begins this Monday. As the UN's World AIDS Conference gets underway in Durban, we're going to meet some young South Africans who are living with the disease.
Hello, I'm Sally Bundock with the business stories. Turkey in turmoil. The government tries to reinsure investors after the weekend's failed coup attempt. But one of the country's most important industries, tourism, is hit hard. And Japan's Softbank is ready to snap up one of Britain's most prized companies, Arm Holdings, that makes components for the tech giant Apple.
Three policemen have been shot dead, 3 others wounded in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The gunman has been named as a 29-year-old man called Gavin Long, who was shot dead after an exchange of gunfire with law enforcement officials. Detectives say they don't know at the moment what the motive was or if there's any connection with the police killing of an African-American man in Baton Rouge earlier this month. President Obama has called for unity. He says everyone should refrain from divisive language. Liana Hosea reports.
On Sunday morning, the gunman, dressed in black with his face covered, opened fire on police officers with an assault rifle. He was shot dead at the scene, but not before killing 3 policemen and wounding 3 others, one of whom is fighting for his life. The shooter has been named as 29-year-old Gavin Long, a former Marine from Kansas City who was supposedly celebrating his birthday. Police think he was acting alone and are searching what they believe to be his house.
We believe that the person that shot and killed our officers, that he is the person that was shot and killed at the scene. So that's what we know right now. We do not believe, or do we have any other shooter held up in any other area in the Baton Rouge area.
The dead include 41-year-old Matthew Gerald, who had served with the Baton Rouge police for less than a year, and Montrell Jackson, a 32-year-old new father who had served for 10 years. Just a few days ago, Officer Jackson posted an emotional message on his Facebook page, saying how difficult it was to be both a police officer and a black man, and that he was physically and emotionally tired. At this stage, it's not clear why the police were attacked, but it comes at a time of heightened tensions in America. This shooting happened along the same street where demonstrations have been taking place against the killing of 37-year-old African-American Alton Sterling by the police just 2 weeks ago. He was shot at point-blank range, even though he was pinned down and appeared to pose no threat. That and another recent killing of an African-American in Minnesota by police triggered largely peaceful protests across America, organised by the Black Lives Matter campaign. But just over a week ago in the city of Dallas, 5 officers were shot dead in a revenge attack. The mother of Alton Sterling's son has called for peace and says she's heartbroken for the families of Baton Rouge officers who were gunned down. The authorities have bolstered security in Baton Rouge to reassure residents, but many Americans fear more violence over the growing tension around policing and race relations. Liana Hosea, BBC News.
Let's stay with this because our correspondent Laura Bicker has more from Baton Rouge.
The details of what we know so far are this. There was a 911 call made to police in the early hours of Sunday morning saying that it was a man walking with a gun along this highway. Police responded and the gunmen started firing upon them. Now, witness accounts have said that there were perhaps some gunshots before police arrived. That has not been corroborated. We do know 3 police officers have been killed, 3 others are injured. One of them is critically ill in hospital. The gunman has been named as 29-year-old Gavin Long. Certainly that is what US media are reporting. He's said to be from Kansas City, Missouri, where police are searching his home, trying to find some clues as to why he would carry out this attack, some idea of motive. Because the key question being asked both here in Baton Rouge and right across the United States is this linked to the recent 2 weeks of tension and violence that we've seen?
That's Laura Becker in Baton Rouge. Head to our website for more on the shootings of these police officers there in Louisiana. There's coverage from the scene itself, also what President Obama has had to say. The address bbc.com/news, or if you prefer, you can download the BBC News app. Recep Tayyip Erdogan says Turkey is going to reconsider introducing the death penalty again after Friday's failed military coup. Thousands of his supporters, he's the Turkish president, they've been holding mass rallies in many cities. They demand action against the conspirators. 6,000 people have now been arrested. They include Mr. Erdogan's top military aide. The president has again accused an exiled cleric, Fethullah Gulen, of being behind the plot. He's given a rare interview. Mr. Gulen has denied any involvement.
They sang his name over and over again. The thousands who filled Kızılay Square in Ankara were there for one man, their president. He's asked his people to occupy the country's squares until Friday to prevent any chance of another coup. But it was the Prime Minister who came to address them. The crowd chanted for those who planned the coup to face the death penalty. And the Prime Minister's response,
Sevgili kardeşlerim,
we hear you.
Mesajınızı aldık.
More than 6,000 people have already been detained inside Turkey, including soldiers, judges and prosecutors. The first few have been rushed to court. It's not clear what fate awaits them. The Turkish government has blamed this man, a former ally of Mr. Erdogan, now living in exile in the United States, of backing the coup. They want him sent home to face trial, but Fethullah Gulen says he believes there's little chance of that.
This doesn't worry me at all, but I'm not going to do anything that will harm my dignity or go against my dignity. In the past, there were demands from the Erdogan side for an apology, but a believer doesn't apologise to an oppressor.
Turkey was already dangerously polarised before the coup. Now Mr. Erdogan's critics fear he'll use this moment as an opportunity to purge dissenters and entrench his control yet further. Bill Hayton, BBC News.
A military coup, failed or not, is not likely to bring any economic benefits to a country. Not always, anyway. You know it has, in Latin America, certainly. Anyway, yeah, that's the point.
Very good point, and that's what we're looking at today in World Business Report, the impact this will have on Turkey as an economy. The government trying to reassure investors that it is in control of the country and the economy. The Turkish lira, though, tumbling nearly 5% in late trade on Friday. It has since then recovered some ground, not much though, and it was the lira's steepest one-day fall since the financial crisis in 2008. Turkey's central bank has promised to provide unlimited liquidity to banks, and the Deputy Prime Minister has taken to social media trying to reassure investors the economy's fundamentals remain strong, and there are concerns it could hit the tourism industry very, very hard. It's been experiencing a slump for some time in this important sector, which has been fueled by security concerns. In May, foreign arrivals continuing to fall, down by more than a third compared to the year before. So we'll be getting an inside track on how Turkey is doing, talking to a businessman who is based there in World Business Report. Also, we're looking at Arm Holdings. It's one of the UK's biggest technology companies. It's set to announce it's being bought by Japan's Softbank for some £32 billion. billion. The board of ARM has recommended shareholders accept this offer, which is close to a 50% premium on the closing market value on Friday. ARM's microchip designs are used in a multitude of devices, including Apple's iPhones. So it is a company that has gone from strength to strength here in the UK. So we'll be looking at that story and the other business news. Just to mention, I am available on Twitter at Sally Bundock BBC, so do get in touch and join in the debate that way. So I'll see you later.
Great. Thanks very much indeed, Sally. They're just under 4 months to go now before the presidential election in the United States and the Republican Party's National Convention. It begins in Cleveland, Ohio this Monday. Donald Trump should be formally announced as the party's candidate. Many members are looking forward to him taking on Hillary Clinton on the 8th of November, although protests and rallies are also expected throughout the 4-day event. Here's our North America correspondent James Cook from Cleveland.
Some say politics is a load of hot air. Not the people flocking to Cleveland this week. They are the foot soldiers of the Republican Party, and they're here for an extraordinary moment, the crowning of a presidential candidate with no political experience. Donald Trump's rise has shaken the party and the United States, but along with his running mate Mike Pence, he is now the Republicans' only hope of the White House. And they know it.
There was some contention in the beginning, and I think that's smoothed out to the point that we're all uniting behind Trump one way or the other. And we're very excited about Pence being the VP nomination.
But millions of Americans are horrified by the idea of President Trump. And on the eve of the convention, they made their feelings known.
We will not stand for racism, xenophobia, and any type of these racist, sexist things that, this country is better than that.
We want a president for peace. We want to build bridges, take down walls, and we want to welcome immigrants and refugees everywhere.
Well, this protest has been noisy, it's been colourful, but it's been peaceful as well. It is, though, just the beginning of what could be an interesting week.
Because the demonstrations are driven by grief and anger as the United States grapples with shootings of black men by police and now police by black men.
We don't need inflammatory rhetoric. We don't need careless accusations thrown around to score political points or to advance an agenda. We need to temper our words and open our hearts, all of us.
But Mr. Trump wasn't having it. President Obama doesn't have a clue, he said on Twitter. Our country is a divided crime scene, and it will only get worse. His Democratic rival Hillary Clinton was more cautious. Today's devastating assault on police officers in Baton Rouge is an assault on all of us, she said. And the Republican convention will open by debating this very topic. The theme on day one, Make America Safe Again. James Cook, BBC News, Cleveland in Ohio.
More than 2,500 South Africans aged between 15 and 24 are infected with the HIV virus every week. Experts from around the world are gathering for the UN World AIDS Conference in Durban, and the issue of adolescence, AIDS and stigma is going to be part of their agenda. Our Southern Africa correspondent Karen Allen reports.
This was the moment when a little boy shamed the world. Nkosi Johnson's dignified demand for AIDS drugs for all and an end to stigma.
We are human beings. We can walk, we can talk.
Nkosi died shortly after, but not in vain. South Africa is turning a corner. 16 years on and millions of lives later, the rules of the game have changed in South Africa. Young men like Sanelli do now have HIV drugs, enabling them to do the things they love.
I was unfortunately born with it. Got it from my mother. I grew up in a family of 3 sisters, 1 brother and me and my mother. Never knew my father. I lost all of them, and the last one was doing what you're doing, journalism. She was fighting for our success. Unfortunately, she also died. So now it's between me and my nephews to build each other and become a stronger family. Yeah.
With the support of friends, Sanelli's had the courage to speak out. Infected as a baby back in the day when leaders here were still in denial about the virus which causes AIDS.
I never asked for any of this to happen in my life, to lose my parents, to lose my financial helper, stuff like that, you see. I never asked for them to happen in life. So it happens, it happens. I have to live with it and be strong.
And he knows a new generation can't afford to take their eye off the ball. It's a mixed picture. Fewer babies are now born with HIV, but 2,500 young South Africans are becoming newly infected every week. This home where Sanelli grew up was set up by Nkozi's foster mother, Gail. Virtually all the youngsters are HIV positive.
Good girl.
The good news is that they have the drugs to keep them alive. The bad news is that stigma and shame still persist, pushing many into silence.
They're still very nervous and very embarrassed about coming forward because they will be judged, they will be ridiculed, and they will be maybe rejected.
Yes, I had sex with Brave. Did you use a condom? She says no.
Changing attitudes to sex is key if infection rates among young people are to be reversed. Science may have moved on, but society is lagging behind, say experts. And AIDS is still a four-letter word that spells shame. Karen Allen, BBC News, South Africa.
Stay with us on BBC World News. Still to come, life inside the Caliphate. We're going to take a journey into territory that used to be controlled by the Islamic State group.
The flamboyant Italian fashion designer Gianni Versace has been shot dead in Florida. The multimillionaire was gunned down outside his home in the exclusive South Beach district of Miami.
Emergency services across Central Europe are stepping up their efforts to contain the worst floods this century. Nearly 100 people have been killed.
Broadway is traditionally called the Great White Way by Americans, but tonight it's completely blacked out. It's a timely reminder to all Americans of the problems that the energy crisis has brought to them.
200 years ago today, a huge Parisian crowd stormed the Bastille prison, the first act of the revolution which was to topple the French monarchy. Today, hundreds of thousands throng the Champs-Élysées for the traditional military parade.
Finally, fairy penguins have been staggering ashore and collapsing after gorging themselves on huge shoal of their favourite food, pilchards. Some had eaten so much they could barely stand.
Welcome back to BBC World News. These are our latest headlines. 3 police officers have been shot dead in the American city of Baton Rouge. The gunman was killed by police. The Republican National Convention begins in Cleveland later on Monday as Donald Trump expects to be officially confirmed as his party's candidate. This Monday, the Poor People's March in Hough, Cleveland commemorates the 50th anniversary of the Hough Riots, in which 4 African Americans were killed and 30 injured. The neighbourhood remains a microcosm of economic disparity. Our video journalist Anna Bressonin asked residents if they thought attitudes had changed in half a century.
Yep, I was 16 at the time when several young people ran in the door right there and hollered out, "It's a riot on Hough." So when we heard that, everyone just broke to the door and started running toward Hough.
My mom, she would talk about the National Guard came and they were rolling down the streets in trucks and tankers and how intimidating and frightening that was.
A 36-year-old Negro man had been shot and killed as sniper fire came from atop a nearby building.
And we just started going down the street. Every business that was white, we were breaking out windows, looting. Breaking out windows, looting.
Then at Crawford and Hough, the arrest of a man, woman, and child for looting.
There it was where the bar was at, where it all began at. A sign was put up in the window about we don't serve water to niggers. You know, when we got down here, we didn't see the sign because the window had been broke out.
I think that the Hough riots are similar to what's happening across the country with Black Lives Matter. People across the country were upset about the conditions that many of them were living in.
We couldn't go across 79th and St. Clair because it was dominantly white. And you go down there, you
get attacked by dogs and white folks chase you with chains. I was a kid.
This is home. We used to call it Huff, where the life is rough. The big lot right here is where the bowling alley used to sit. Businesses, and it was a supermarket with big windows. I mean, it was beautiful. And since the uprising, this is how it looked. Barren.
Put your hands on it because you guys are impacting change.
Slide it down.
I think that it's been amazing that with the Republican convention, tons and tons and tons of dollars have come into the city of Cleveland. But yet and again, you really see the most development in neighborhoods that are not Huff, that are not Superior, that are not St. Clair.
Republicans is all rich. They come here for what? To bring some money into the town. They put water downtown for the kids to play in, but they'll cut our water off in the neighborhood if we don't pay the bill. It's still rough. Back then, the police was killing the blacks, beating the blacks, you know. It's still the same. There's nothing changed. It just quieted down.
It was June 2014 that the Islamic State group declared its caliphate, a concept which means IS claims religious, political and military authority over all Muslims around the world. That, though, has been rejected by governments and Muslim leaders. But in the 2 years since that declaration, we've discovered actually very little about life in the parts of Iraq and Syria IS controls. Now, with the militants being pushed back, a more detailed picture is beginning to emerge. The BBC's J.R. Gould travelled with Kurdish fighters as they advanced in the Manbij region of Syria. He got exclusive access to a former IS HQ.
We are going to one of the schools run by Islamic State in this neighborhood.
The first classroom appears to be arts and crafts, but with a sinister purpose.
What's that? There's a human figure laying on the down. It seems they have been putting battery and heating it up, so drones and planes overhead, if see them, mistaken them for human being or ISIS militants, so they would target them. It's a decoy. It's a factory. I can't see that many of them has been made here. They've been very clever. The kitchen. Oh, wait a second. It's Matbach kitchen. It's written in Russian. It seems we have seen a lot of Russian sign. It seems many people living in this compound were from former Soviet Union countries. They say most of them are Chechens. Here, friends forever. Ahmed, Umar. It seems to me these are the names of the children of some of those ISIS militants, written in English. And these people, maybe they have come from some English-speaking countries. Here I can see written in Arabic, Real Madrid, Spanish football club. In class ders. This is one of the classroom, and I can see they have taught them physics. I can see some math formula on the whiteboard. And also here, most of the material left behind are Quranic and religious. This is some kind of military lesson and talking about how to find refuge in case of bombardment and attack. It's amazing. For example, here they teach them if you commit a crime, according to Islamic State, this is your punishment. Here, lavat, meaning if you are homosexual, they will push you from top of a building. If you steal something, they will cut your hand. If you drink alcohol, you will be punished. And if you fight against them, it's called muharaba. They cut your neck, hang your body in the public. This is chilling.
Bit of golf news now because Henrik Stenson is this year's Open champion. The Swede was playing the final round at Royal Troon with the American Phil Mickelson. They both produced some truly remarkable golf. In such a high-pressure situation, Stenson rose to the occasion. He hit 4 birdies in the final 5 holes. Andy Swiss watched it all.
Well, rarely has the Open Championship ever seen a final day quite like this. Spellbinding drama, one of the great sporting contests between Henrik Stenson and Phil Mickelson, and it's ended with Henrik Stenson claiming his first ever major title, 20 under par. That is a new record for the Open Championship after a final round of 63. The day began, of course, with Stenson 1 shot clear of Mickelson, and both players rose to the occasion in exhilarating fashion. They traded birdies on the front 9. Mickelson edged ahead at one point. Back came Stenson. It was nip and tuck all the way through the final round until they got to the 16th hole, where Stenson secured a vital birdie. That put him 2 shots clear, and from there was no way back for Phil Mickelson, as Stenson claimed victory on the 18th green with a perfect putt. It was the picture book way, really, to secure your first major title at the age of 40, and he's also the first Scandinavian ever to win a major title, and few can begrudge him after one of the great golfing performances. Who would have thought that Phil Mickelson could shoot a round of 65 and end up losing by 3? So the fans are leaving here knowing that they have seen something very special indeed. A fantastic day for them, but most of all, a fantastic day for Henrik Stenson.
Andy Swiss at Royal Troon. What a lucky man he was. Great finish to the Open. Sally is next with your business report. Bye-bye.
Hello. I know it won't be to everybody's taste, but the summer heat is beginning to build. Temperatures widely across central and eastern parts of England, getting up to 26, 27 degrees. 1 or 2 spots even hit 28, but still at or below the mid-July average across more northern and western parts of the UK, particularly Scotland, where across the northwest it's going to be a rather cloudy and a damp day on Monday as well. But sunshine across most of England and Wales, breaking through across southern Scotland, Northern Ireland quite widely as well. And those temperatures will respond. Most places getting well up into the mid or high 20s across England and Wales. Some pleasant breezes around the coast if you want to escape the heat. Just a chance of 1 or 2 showers maybe developing through the afternoon across parts of Northern England, Northern Ireland, maybe southern Scotland. But those temperatures yet to rise by Monday across the northern half of Scotland, and really quite cool across those northwestern parts with the cloud, the rain and the mistiness as well. Much of the rain will tend to die away during Monday night into the early hours of Tuesday morning. You've probably noticed all this fog sitting in the Irish Sea. That'll move on shore from time to time overnight. But a pretty muggy old night across a large part of England and Wales, particularly. Temperatures in many places holding up into the high teens. And then Tuesday, that's when the heat really begins to reach its peak. Sunshine virtually everywhere, light winds as well, high UV levels, just a little bit of mistiness around some coasts, but that heat beginning to be pulled in from the near continent where temperatures have been rising over recent days. So we could well get up into the low 30s, most likely across central and southern England, but to high 20s, Northern Ireland, many parts of Scotland as well. So it is going to be a pretty hot day virtually everywhere. Then overnight through Tuesday night, we're going to see those temperatures holding well up. Really quite uncomfortable, I think. Temperatures in some cases staying above 20 degrees and relatively humid to some extent as well. But of course, as often happens in the UK in summer heat, it's going to start to break down. Into Wednesday, an area of low pressure forming, and we'll see some heavy, potentially thundery showers developing. More particularly, I think, across the northern half of the UK. Might not see that much in the way of showers across central and southern parts of England and Wales, and still the remnants of the heat lingering on across eastern parts, close to 30 degrees again, further north and west, beginning to turn cooler, and that's how it stays through Thursday and Friday. Still near normal temperatures in the south, but a little more unsettled as you go further north.
Frankly, we are living in extraordinary times at Westminster.
Theresa May, the 54th Prime Minister in British history.
The selection of her team will be extremely important. Governments are who the people are.
Follow the latest developments and analysis on the BBC News channel, online and the BBC News app.
A dramatic landscape on the edge of the Pacific.
What really defines the region is its people.
With a past enriched in history.
The peoples of the Northwest Coast stand out as one of the most successful cultures anywhere on Earth.
The tribes of the American Northwest defied the odds and survived.
We have no other option than succeeding.
Now their unique spirit lives on.
We're getting stronger as a people all the time.
The extraordinary story of the masters of the Pacific Coast.
We've always been here and we belong here and we'll take care of this place.
The Tribes of the American Northwest starts the 27th of July on BBC4.
You're watching BBC World News. These are our main headlines. President Obama has called for restraint after 3 police officers were shot dead and 3 others wounded in the city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Tensions have been high since an African-American man was shot dead by white officers in the city 2 weeks ago. In response to the shootings, Donald Trump criticised President Obama for a lack of leadership. He was speaking a day before the start of the Republican National Convention, where he's due to be formally nominated for the race to the White House. Turkey's leaders have again said they'll listen to calls from their party's supporters to reinstate the death penalty. It follows the unsuccessful coup attempt launched against the government by members of the armed forces on Friday. The UN Conference on AIDS opens in South Africa later this Monday to speed up efforts to try to eradicate the disease. Global infection rates have declined, but worldwide more than 36 million people are living with HIV. There's the latest headlines from BBC World News. Here's Sally with the latest financial stories.
Turkey in turmoil. The government tries to reassure investors after the weekend's failed coup attempt. But there are fears that one of the country's most important industries, tourism, will be hit hard. And selling into the European Union, does Canada have the answers to the UK's negotiation with Europe? We'll be hearing from the country's trade minister. Hello and welcome. You with World Business Report. I'm Sally Bundock. Also in the programme, Japan's Softbank is ready to snap up one of Britain's most prized companies. That's Arm Holdings. Rico Hizon will have all the details for us. First of all, though, let's start with what's going on in Turkey. Following the failed military coup there, the government is reassuring investors it is in control of the country and the economy. The Turkish lira tumbled nearly 5% in late trade on Friday. It has since recovered a little. It was the lira's steepest one-day fall, though, since the financial crisis of 2008. And the country's central bank has promised to provide unlimited liquidity to banks, and the Deputy Prime Minister has taken to social media trying to reassure investors the economy's fundamentals remain strong. There are concerns, though, it could hit the tourism industry hard. A slump in this all-important industry has been fueled by security concerns. In May, foreign arrivals continuing to fall by more than a third compared to the year before. Well, let's speak to Michael Greenfield, a business journalist based in Istanbul. Michael, thanks for being on the programme. Give us your take on the feeling there where you are at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're looking at a lot of lack of confidence going into the markets. Certainly FDI played a huge role in the industry, inside the Turkish economy over 2015, accounting for $11.5 billion. And we're certainly looking at some of that being withdrawn from the economy over 2016. You mentioned tourism as well. There's kind of a few figures flying around between 25 and 40%, which could account for $8 billion or even more over the year. And certainly, obviously, after January's attacks and the attacks that happened 2 weeks ago, we've already experienced a little bit of that downfall, and we expect that to continue over the next 6 months and, of course, into 2017.
So there's a lot of headwinds for sure in Turkey. It would seem that how it plays out from here onwards is critical in terms of foreign investors' views as to whether they should be investing in Turkey right now.
Certainly, and of course we expect that to change in terms of how much revenue is coming into the economy. There has been the overarching kind of issues, twofold in the Turkey economy. Of course, the current account deficit has always been quite large, and some of that has been softened by the inflow of FDI. We've also had the issue of hot money leaving the economy. It was around 10 billion that left the economy, in $10 billion US that left the economy in 2015. And we expect that to kind of continue over 2016. And obviously that will compound issues with the currency as well.
And when you talk about FDI, just for our viewers, foreign direct investment we're talking about there, it was only a few years ago that Turkey was seen as one of the most promising and exciting economies, emerging economies, that was getting a lot of attention. Do you think that President Erdogan can turn this situation around and regain that sort of view internationally as one of the most exciting places to invest?
Well, it's difficult, and obviously some of these things are out of his control. The geopolitical situation is not favorable at the moment and hasn't been for a little while, and that has been affecting markets. But what we might see, obviously, Erdogan will try and kind of solidify things at home. Obviously, he might kind of extend his reach further into the judiciary, and that might shore up some investor confidence by kind of bringing the nation a little bit together, a little bit closer together. But of course, I think the wider situation is definitely working against him, and I think that will continue.
All right, for now, Michael Greenfield, we appreciate your time, a business journalist who's based in Istanbul. And of course, this is a developing story that we're keeping you right across here on BBC World News. But let's now move on to other business stories. Talking about Arm Holdings. This is one of the UK's biggest technology companies. Apparently, it's set to announce it's being bought by Japan's Softbank for some $32 billion. As you can see, Rico Hizon is with us. Nice to see you, Rico. This is an interesting
huge
manoeuvre, isn't it?
Yes. Absolutely, Sally, because first and foremost, the Japanese telecommunications giant Softbank wants to make a significant push into the mobile internet space. And according to sources close to the deal, they say that they're buying Arm because it is well positioned to exploit the Internet of Things. And of course, everyone knows that Arm's microchip designs are used by an array of devices, including Apple's iPhone. It also potentially, Sally, is a good deal for Softbank price-wise, because this comes less than a month after the UK's decision to leave the European Union, which pushed down the value of the pound against the yen, potentially making British companies much more attractive bargains for buyers from overseas. Softbank is also committed, according to sources, to doubling the size of Arm's UK workforce over the next 5 years. Well, the Japanese tech giant is one of the world's biggest technology companies, Sally, and is run by its founder, Japanese entrepreneur Masayoshi Son, and it previously acquired Vodafone's Japanese operations and the US telecommunications company Sprint. Sally.
Interesting. We'll keep an eye. Thank you very much indeed, Rico. It would be a Japanese company's biggest ever acquisition if that were to go ahead. We'll keep an eye on that announcement. Some say it could come through today on that. Now let's return to a familiar subject on this programme, Brexit. The UK's new minister in charge of Brexit says Britain should be able to formally trigger its departure under Article 50 by the start of next year. Writing in the Sun newspaper, David Davis has called for a brisk but measured approach with a likely exit from the EU around December 2018. He said Canada's trade deal with the EU is a possible blueprint to follow. The BBC's Andrew Walker has been speaking with Canada's trade minister and started by asking about the impact Brexit would have on its relationship with Britain.
We're not just friends of Britain, we consider ourselves to be family. You know, in my own personal case, my father was born in Britain. My husband is British, and one of my 3 children was born in Britain, and that's quite a common thing for Canadians. So We're very close to Britain, and it's a close economic relationship. We export about 11 billion pounds worth to the UK. We import about 8 billion, and we are big investors in Britain. Last year, Canadians invested 45.5 billion pounds worth in the UK. So it's a very strong relationship, and we know it will continue to be strong.
Canada now has a trade agreement with the European Union, known as CETA, which hasn't come into force yet, but is due to quite soon. How will that affect Canada's economic relationship with the UK once the UK has left the European Union?
It's hard and wrong to get too deep into hypotheticals. But what I think we can say about CETA is it's a great agreement. It's been negotiated with Britain inside. We're working towards its implementation on a timeline that would mean Britain is still part of the EU as it comes into force. And where we go from there would depend very much and chiefly on what I think is Britain's chief trade job right now, which is figuring out its relationship with the EU.
During the referendum campaign, some Leave campaigners argued that the kind of relationship Canada has with the European Union would work for Britain after leaving the EU. Do you think that would make sense for Britain?
That's really a political choice. The kind of trading relationship a country chooses with other countries is ultimately, as Britain knows very well, having made a big political choice right now, it's about politics. CETA is a great deal. It's an ambitious deal. From the Canadian perspective, it's a deeper trading relationship than NAFTA is because it includes government procurement. It is, however, not as close a relationship, obviously, as actually being a member of the EU. There's a delta there.
Canada's trade minister there. Let's squeeze in a bit of news coming from Tesla. The man in charge, Elon Musk, is saying he's optimistic a software update can improve the firm's autopilot system on its cars. The electric car company has been working on changes since May after one of its sedans failed to detect a tractor trailer in bright sunlight and crashed into it. The driver was killed. Mr. Musk hasn't given any details on when the update might happen. Quick look at financial markets. Brand new trading week, obviously underway in Asia right now. Just to say that figure there for the Nikkei 225 is Friday's close. They've got a public holiday in Japan today, so no trading happening today in Japan. Hong Kong, though, up you can see just slightly. And of course, the yen has weakened quite a bit, actually, in recent days, which will help Japan when it reopens later this week. That's the end of trade on Friday. You can say it's fairly flat, but mixed. So markets really taking it on the chin. They were very concerned about the situation in Turkey on Friday, but people seem to be a little bit more okay about that scenario for now. We'll talk some more about that in a minute when we look at the papers. I'll see you then.
Boys are nearly twice as likely as girls to have fallen behind by the time they start school, according to a new report. Research by Save the Children and Bristol University suggests that last year alone, 90,000 boys in England started a reception class struggling to speak a full sentence or follow simple instructions. Our correspondent Graham Satchell has this report.
A line has a V at the end. Good boy.
Clapham Manor Primary School and teacher Tammy Allen is spending time with the boys on reading and writing. She says the gap between girls and boys is noticeable from day one.
I think the problem with boys is that sometimes they're less engaged in what we would call formal education. Their speech doesn't always develop as quickly as girls, whereas girls do like to sit and draw, and generally girls like to please the teachers.
Today's research for Save the Children suggests this gender gap cuts across social classes and that boys who are behind at the start of school will stay behind, potentially for life. But you don't need academics or charities to tell you that. Just listen to 5-year-old Leah.
Girls can write and they can do reading and they're good at listening and they play nicely and they do good sharing.
And what about boys?
Well, boys are good, but sometimes some boys don't do good listening and some boys just don't behave properly, sometimes doesn't share, and some of them don't really know how to read and write.
Just for a bit of balance, here's Zakai with a thought.
Girls can be naughty too.
Yes, they can. Nature or nurture, and what to do about closing the gender gap? Big questions for parents, schools, government. Graham Satchell, BBC News.
You're watching BBC World News. These are our top stories. It's emerged that the gunman who killed 3 US law enforcement officers in the American city of Baton Rouge had posted video messages complaining about the treatment of African Americans at the hands of the police and calling for black men to make sacrifices for their race. President Obama has called for restraint. In response to the shootings, the Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump criticized President Obama for what he said was a lack of leadership. Mr. Trump called the country a divided crime scene, his comments coming a day before the start of the Republican National Convention, where he's due to be formally announced as the party's nominee for the race to the White House. The Turkish state news agency says 1,800 Special Forces police officers have been deployed in Istanbul from neighbouring provinces in the wake of Friday's failed coup. Turkish leaders have again said they'll listen to calls from their supporters to reinstate the death penalty. Around 6,000 people have been detained, including military commanders, judges and prosecutors. Let's begin our news review with the front page of Gulf News and a picture of mourners grieving for a relative killed in the attempted coup in Turkey. The paper reports on concerns that President Erdogan may be using the failed takeover to try to silence his critics.
There's been another surge in apparent racial tension in Baton Rouge in Louisiana, as Adnan was just mentioning in the headlines there. This is the International New York Times looking at the killing of 3 police officers there on Sunday.
The Wall Street Journal writes that the man who carried out the Nice attack using a truck to kill 84 people was prone to bizarre acts of rage. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility, but authorities are still trying to figure out if IS was indeed part of this attack.
The Financial Times reports India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will begin to push through Parliament's long-awaited tax reforms. It's hoped this will turn India into a genuine single market.
The Guardian has a study which suggests millennials, that's people aged between 15 to 35, could be the first group of workers to earn less over their lifetime than the previous generation.
And what's the secret to a long life? Well, a British biotech company is trying to find that out. It's bought the genetic data of 13,000 people from one province in Sardinia because they have an unusually large number there of people who live beyond the age of 100. That's in the Financial Times.
Alpesh Patel is here this morning, CEO of the private equity firm Profinium Partners. Good morning, Alpesh.
Morning.
Out of all the news that has come out from Turkey, I saw one line which said that Air Force jets that were part of the failed coup had President Erdogan's plane in their sights at one moment on Friday.
Yeah, apparently there were 2 in their crosshairs, and they can't quite understand on the president's side why they didn't fire, given that they had him in the crosshairs. You know what's really worrying about this, which the newspapers haven't brought out? This is a NATO country. So where was NATO's intelligence? Where was command and control? Where was any kind of understanding of what your NATO allies' military is doing? The Russians must be falling over themselves, saying, well, this is the front line of defense, a military which isn't actually even in control of itself or isn't even controlled by the government. That's what's worrying. This is the first line of defense to the aggression we're told about, the so-called aggression from the Russians. By the looks of it, they can just walk in the way this is playing out. Where was CIA intelligence? Apparently they're supposed to be good at this kind of stuff, let alone, presumably, another fellow NATO allies' intelligence, British intelligence. They had no clue. Nobody seems to have had a clue about any of this going on within our European borders,
Well, that's what we assume. We actually don't know, do we?
Well, you'd think if they knew...
What would they do if they knew? That's the question.
They would have prevented it. They would have said to the president...
Can they intervene?
But first of all, Turkey has been part of NATO on previous occasions when there have been coups.
Oh, but that was okay because the Americans were behind it in 1980, so that was fine. That was our coup. But this time, it doesn't look like it was one of ours. So the Americans have said, the Turks have tried to blame the Americans on this. Actually, they've been blaming absolutely everybody by the looks of it. They've been spraying and praying that it's everyone else. But that's the most worrying thing about this, is that this is, what, 2 hours within a 2-hour flight of London, and we don't have any level of security within Europe, let alone the other stories we've got about lack of security within Europe.
Gulf News, though, is highlighting one of the key elements that's a real concern right now is the fact that what happens next. And it talks about the fact that, President Erdogan, has made a lot of statements, and his ministers is about how they're going to get rid of this virus.
Yeah.
And what does that mean for those who've been detained,
Absolutely.
the thousands that have been detained?
Apparently, the alleged reason for the coup was a suspension of human rights and the rule of law, so suspend it some more and have a coup. But in any event, it looks like now, from what some of the newspapers are reporting, and certainly from what the Americans have said, is that the president should not use this as an excuse to purge opposition, which seems to fall into, based on some of the newspaper reports, his modus operandi, which is, initially, is wipe them out, whether they were opposition or not. Now we can rule with an iron grip, which is why there's a few conspiracy theories as well, which you'd always get with this kind of thing. Either way, it's incredibly worrying. Especially when you consider, when you look at the Brexit vote in the UK, one of the key factors was Turkey might become a member of the EU. Well, now you can kiss goodbye to the EU for the foreseeable future. You can't have this kind of instability within there. I think NATO should say to them, you better get your house in order and come under direct command of NATO. Otherwise, you're getting out of that organisation as well, and you're on your own with the Russians.
Yeah, maybe something that actually suits President Erdogan for that to happen, that his military has that particularly close alliance.
He'll try and play it and say, we need more money.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, the call for money will come.
Actually, he's on the front page of every paper, really. But in the International New York Times, we're looking at what's happened in Louisiana. 3 police officers have been killed, 3 have been wounded. It comes almost exactly 2 weeks after Alton Sterling was held down on the ground by 2 police officers and then basically assassinated, wasn't he, Alton Sterling?
Yeah, absolutely. From you can see the videos. There's not even a question of allegedly. You can see the videos for yourself, and that's first-hand evidence. You know, this, and not just this story, Turkey and the other ones we're going to look at, it proves the helplessness of governments. We always want to say, you know what they should do? They should do this, they should do that, they should do this. Actually, how does this end? You've got, in some of the newspapers, it says a black ex-Marine, and they link this, like you say, to the racial issues as to the reasons for the shooting. How does this end? There's so many guns in America in any event. There's so many ex-Marines who are black. Given how many of them served their nation, how does this story end? Because it doesn't end with new laws. It doesn't end with arming the police. They're already well armed. Okay, how does this end? It doesn't end. It just simply doesn't end any time in the future.
How does it play out with regards to the presidential elections that's taking place in November?
What's fascinating?
Today, the Republican convention starts, doesn't it?
There's a clear division. The Democrats are saying Black Lives Matter. The Republicans are saying all lives matter, with an undertone, some allege, of slightly racist right wing. When you're saying all lives, are you just trying to move away from this Black Lives issue? Because, of course, disproportionately across the whole of the United States, the figures suggest that you really need to worry more about black lives than you do white lives. Obviously, it depends on demographics in specific areas. But how does this end? Its government is going to be completely helpless on this, and it doesn't...
Regardless of who gets the top job.
Whoever gets the top job, because anybody with a gun can take out a police officer. We want the police to be armed. We want the police to be defending us. We want the police to be visible. And we want, presumably, now we clearly want other people to be armed against the police as well. This, sadly, for America, which is a beacon, the reason it matters for the rest of us in the world, it's supposed to be a beacon for human rights, a beacon for liberty, a beacon for freedom, hopefully a beacon for racial integration, which, again, same problems in Europe, when we're talking about Nice and so on. This doesn't really hold much hope. It's a gloomy day, both in terms of what governments can do, and it's a gloomy day for racial integration, actually anywhere in the Western world.
The former French president, Nicolas Sarkozy, is going to stand again, we believe. Yeah. He says, we're at war. This is a total war. It's them against us. But from all the evidence that I've been able to see so far, it doesn't suggest that this guy was acting on behalf of Islamic State, the man who killed 84 people in Nice. But the French want us to believe that for some reason.
Yeah, well, the reason's very obvious. He wants to get into power, and if you're a politician, just move more to the right.
But I think the
government
is kind of going on that angle as well.
Yeah, well, politicians not working in the national interest. There you go. Scaremongering, it'll get you the votes. They're only bothered about getting elected. How long before Sarkozy or the Republicans in the US say, you know what, never mind just the Muslim problem that they have, they say. What about just screening Tunisians, Moroccans, even if they're French nationals? How long before they start saying, you know, maybe some kind of internment camp? Yeah, it's not like it's something unthinkable for Europe, is it?
Right, Alpesh, 3 stories still to go, and we've got hardly any time.
Sorry.
You take your pick. Narendra Modi in India in a single market, or biotech living to over 100?
I tell you what, I'm going to pick India, not because I'm of Indian origin, but because global growth is supposed to slow down. What the Prime Minister of India is trying to do is simplify their tax code, hopefully boost Indian growth. Why is that important? It's one of the 10 largest economies in the world, and it's very important for us. Look at how interconnected we are, even in the UK. Let's hope he gets it right, because it means that'll be greater global wealth.
Well done.
Alpesh, thank you very much indeed. Really great to see you. Have a great week ahead. Thanks a lot. And thanks for watching.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Hello. I know it won't be to everybody's taste, but the summer heat is beginning to build. Temperatures widely across central and eastern parts of England getting up to 26, 27 degrees. 1 or 2 spots even hit 28, but still at or below the mid-July average across more northern and western parts of the UK, particularly Scotland, where across the northwest it's going to be a rather cloudy and a damp day on Monday as well. But sunshine across most of England and Wales, breaking through across southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, quite widely as well, and those temperatures will respond. Most places getting well up into the mid or high 20s across England and Wales. Some pleasant breezes around the coast if you want to escape the heat. Just a chance of 1 or 2 showers maybe developing through the afternoon across parts of northern England, Northern Ireland, maybe southern Scotland. But those temperatures yet to rise by Monday across the northern half of Scotland, and really quite cool across those northwestern parts with the cloud, the rain and the mistiness as well. Much of the rain will tend to die away during Monday night into the early hours of Tuesday morning. You've probably noticed all this fog sitting in the Irish Sea. That'll move on shore from time to time overnight. But a pretty muggy old night across a large part of England and Wales, particularly temperatures in many places holding up into the high teens. And then Tuesday, that's when the heat really begins to reach its peak. Sunshine virtually everywhere, light winds as well, high UV levels, just a little bit of mistiness around some coasts, but that heat beginning to be pulled in from the near continent where temperatures have been rising over recent days. So we could well get up into the low 30s, most likely across central and southern England, but to high 20s, Northern Ireland, many parts of Scotland as well. So it is going to be a pretty hot day virtually everywhere. Then overnight through Tuesday night, we're going to see those temperatures holding well up. Really quite uncomfortable, I think. Temperatures in some cases staying above 20 degrees and relatively humid to some extent as well. But of course, as often happens in the UK in summer heat, it's going to start to break down. Into Wednesday, an area of low pressure forming, and we'll see some heavy, potentially thundery showers developing. More particularly, I think, across the northern half of the UK. Might not see that much in the way of showers across central and southern parts of England and Wales, and still the remnants of the heat lingering on across eastern parts, close to 30 degrees again, further north and west.